Register for making all this possible.
You all ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned a lot about current auditor Rob Sand and things that you like about his platform, things that he's done. What are some things that you would continue to do that he's worked on during his time in office, and what are some things that you would either do different or different things that you would initiate?
Yeah, appreciate the question. I think Rob in this office, as I said, has done things the right way. He's built on a long legacy of folks that have worked in that office who've been approaching this in a non-partisan way. And so, I think he's done a great job of asking the questions to folks who are out there, no matter what the party is, digging into things like that, right? Making sure that that's all being done there. I think a good innovation that he added, that I'm a big fan of, is the PI program, the Public Innovations and Efficiencies program. So that's definitely something we want to continue. And I think most of all, working hard to maintain the independence of the office like Rob has done. But there's a few things where I'd like to continue to build on what he has been doing in this office in a really good way. I want to expand our support for local and rural areas. I think we talk a lot about the fraud and corruption, and we talk a lot about sort of state level challenges that we face, including we talked about the school voucher program. But a lot of folks out there in the rural areas and our small towns are maybe trying to stop these problems, but they might not just have the know-how, the training, the technology to do it. So my view is that if we can provide more support in the front end, it's going to be a lot more effective for folks down the road. It's kind of like primary care versus expensive treatment. When you already are sick, right? If you can provide more support up front for these areas, we're not going to have all the pain of playing whack-a-mole in the back end, trying to find the problems and fix things when they are already problems. That's a big focus for us. Beyond that, I want to make sure this office is, doing all it can to support an economy that works for all folks in our state. That means when folks are coming into our state and getting tax abatements, perhaps, right, and not keeping up their end of the bargain to support our communities, well, that's state money. Situations where you got folks who are engaging in environmental damage or hurting workers and breaking laws in relation to labor issues or environmental issues, well, they need to pay fines, and if they're not paying their fines, well, that's state money. And I think beyond that, right, we have situations where a lot of folks are experiencing wage theft, misclassification. It's money that's not being given to the state, and also it's hurting our local workers. I think folks are really struggling right now, and I want to make sure this office is going to be there for them in supporting them in this critical moment.
I'm Kay. We talked when you were running for Congress.
Hi, Kay. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. As we cover sand, he often says, I'm going to be governing if I win with a Republican legislature. Yeah. It's very unlikely that the Republican legislature would undo the law that they passed in 2023. Have you thought about ways that you can operate with that law in place?
Yeah.
And new ways that you might find that Auditor Sand has not to, to not prosecute, but make sure that taxpayer dollars are being spent wisely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I think to start with, it's important to note that even though they have taken away some of the ability of the office to get the information that they deem necessary, and which I believe often is very, very necessary, it's not like Rob and the office has not been able to do its job. They've continued to do a great job, and I think they've done a number of things, even with that challenge they face, that have been really helpful for folks. And they continue to call out the problems, even where they couldn't get all the information they needed. So, for example, with the school voucher program, Rob was still able to pursue an audit of what was going on there. Now, did he get all the information he needed to do it in a really fulsome way? No, he didn't. But he was able to dig in, look at the challenges, and put that forward. So I think it's important to note that while we talk about threats to that office in that sort of way, this office can continue to do a lot of good. Rob has done a lot of good, and we're excited to build on that. I think another thing too, of course, within all the structures of the law, we know that if I'm in there and Rob is in there, I think that he will understand the challenges that the auditor has faced. He'll understand the importance of making sure that somebody who's in this office can actually do their job. And so we're hopeful that when he's working with the executive and I'm working with the executive, I think that we'll have an environment, we'll have a governor who is more amiable to making sure the information is provided to us to allow us to do that, and that when folks that are in the agencies want to share that information, he'll stand by that sort of decision. So we're hopeful that I think we can continue the work that Rob has done, and we're hopeful that in an environment with a governor who's more understanding, that folks won't be hiding behind that sort of law to try to diminish our ability to give the information that's necessary.
You brought up a part of that law. It set up a three-person
Yep.
panel to make a decision if requested information would be provided. The governor, the auditor, and a representative of the agency.
Yep.
So if it's all three part of the sand Wittich relationship, the law will kind of be negated.
Yeah, my hope is that, the law would not be negated, right? The law would still be there, of course. If you're going to change the law, you need to change the law the right way. But I think what I'm saying is that within that law, I think there's a real opportunity for us to work together on those issues. And so, I think, again, this is an important thing regardless of if I'm elected, of if Rob Sand's elected. This is just something that needs to be done for the sake of our state. And so I'm hopeful that, with Rob in there, we'll have a partner that will be able to understand, and I think you will, the importance of having somebody do their nonpartisan job as a state auditor. And so you can hopefully build on the good work he's been doing. Appreciate it.
For many years, Iowa state auditors were certified public accountants. That's less of an issue in this race because neither candidate is a CPA. What would you say to Iowans who want to know what is it about your legal background that makes you qualified to hold this office?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, Rob came into this office as a prosecutor. I come at it from a different angle, right? I was a lawyer focused on financial matters. I spent my career working with some of the very best auditors in this country, looking over financial matters, seeing where there were issues, seeing where there weren't issues, doing the full legal and financial diligence with them. So I had the experience and understanding to look into those financials. And then, as a lawyer, I had the experience and understanding to make sure that where there are problems that we do find, we can do something about it. So I'm excited to take that background and leverage it. As you noted, my opponent is not a CPA, and does not have a background focusing on legal issues, and does not have a background focusing on financial matters. And so I think hopefully when we get the word out there, folks see the nonpartisan way that we're approaching this office with, carrying on that good work, and understand I actually have a really, really significant background in financial matters and legal issues, but most of all, a commitment to doing things the right way, that they'll support us in November.
Speaking of your opponent, you said something aligned to the effects of, worry or concern that they would take taxpayer-funded money to fuel corruption. What corruption are you referring to?
Well, I'm referring to the fact that what has been taking place already is corruption, right? The fact that they have changed the law of the state auditor to stop the state auditor from being able to see what's going on, right? When you do that, when you get rid of the watcher, then corruption is evident there, and it becomes the natural result of that sort of thing. So at the core of this, right, we have already seen corruption in our state. We know that they have tried to stop the state auditor from doing its nonpartisan work, from being able to follow the money wherever it is, and where we find issues, where issues are found that there might be politicians that are out there stealing money, taking the money, or otherwise engaging in behavior that is bad actor in nature, they've tried to stop that from happening. So I see that as really being the number one thing for this office, is making sure the office has its independence, has its authority, that it has, the folks in there that will be able to do their job, getting the backing from the folks who might be on the top, and not instead getting somebody in there that's going to try to mess with their work or diminish their ability to actually find the problems that are out there.
Related, you said there needs to be more transparency and accountability for the school voucher program. I guess, what would you do differently than what Auditor Sand has already done to try and account for how those public dollars are being spent?
Yeah. I think our hope is that, obviously kind of within the structures that we are facing, right, in this environment where, hopefully we get a good state auditor in there that will do things the right way, and get a governor in there that will be willing to support the state auditor, allow the state auditor to get some information, of course, within the structures of the law, to review this, that we'll have a chance. Right now, Rob has been effectively blocked, right, from having anybody in that government who's willing to let the state auditor's office look at all of these programs, right? Rob has been blocked in doing that. And again, you talk to the folks in that office, they'll tell you that the greatest threat to the ability to do their work is that law passing, right? As we talked about, I think, the situation here, especially where I'm elected and Rob is elected, I do think we have a good foundation to be able to look more into these sorts of issues. And at the very least, have a situation where when folks that are within the structures of the rules want to share the information to make sure the auditor can actually look at what's happening in our state, want to do it, that they're not going to be blocked by politicians at the top. They're trying to say, hey, no, you can't share this sort of information. We can't give it to the state auditor. We don't want him or her looking at what's going on in the state budget.
You've been all over the state, but you're rooted in Muscatine.
Yep.
Muscatine is kind of emblematic of those Mississippi River counties that voted for Obama twice and Trump 3 times. What is your sense of the mood, particularly in Muscatine and other Mississippi River counties?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. My view is that I think a lot of folks looked at towns like that and said, nah, they're not going to play ball. If a Democrat's running, right, they're not going to play ball. They're pretty stuck in terms of the positions they've taken, voting for Trump, that sort of thing. And I disagree with that, right? My experience has shown me something different. We have spent a lot of time, obviously I'm from Muscatine, I'm living in Muscatine, but we've spent a lot of time talking with folks up and down the river, where I believe that we will get a lot of good folks in that want a change. And so, what am I talking about, right? When I get out there, most of my experience is that, and I think the same is true for a lot of parts in our state, folks in Iowa are pretty independent minded, right? They're not particularly partisan. And if you're willing to meet them where they're at, if you're willing to actually go to talk with them, I think it goes a long way. I'm talking about a situation, for example, where, we were at a fair and had a conversation with somebody. I didn't tell them who I was or what I was doing. We just were talking. 5 minutes in, he was telling me about the horses he was raising and hearing about the challenges, including the local government challenges he was facing. And he asked me, well, what do I do? I said, well, I'm running for state auditor. And he said, well, gosh, I haven't actually met somebody doing something like that that's come out to our fair. And I vote for the person, not the party. Now, I have historically voted for Republicans, he said, but I vote for the person, not the party. I don't see why I wouldn't vote for you. So it's conversations like that we've had that have shown us, I think, that if you go out there and you meet people, you don't just ignore people, you meet people where they're at, and you talk about the issues that really matter, start with relationships first, build those relationships, they'll say, hang on a second, this guy might have a D next to his name, but he's not half bad. He's an Iowan first. And so we're going to be really committed to earning everybody's vote across my hometown and the river towns along there, but really all across the state in rural areas and supposedly red areas, wherever we can go. And we're working hard to make sure that folks know that we care and listen.
So you've been discussing how if Rob Sand is elected governor, how much more opportunities do you get at some of these issues to build on what he's been doing? So say in a situation where you are elected, but Rob Sand is not elected, how does that change your approach to the office and trying to conduct the duties that you said are so important?
Yeah, I think that in a situation where I'm elected and Rob Sand is elected, I don't want to say this office becomes more important, but it certainly is important, right? In a different way, in the sense that in that situation, I and anyone else who might be of similar mind about the need to follow the law, do things the right way, no matter what, might be a little bit lonely out there for us. I think in that position, it's going to be that much more important that we actually are doing what we need to do, right? I think Rob has shown that, the past few years as well. He's been in a situation where, not everybody's been listening to what he's been saying about the need to actually make sure the auditor can do its job, need to look into waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption, wherever it is. And, has he been limited in what he could do? Yeah. But has his job been really important? 100%. So I think, no matter what, it's really, really important that we have somebody in this office that will be an independent watchdog, that will call a spade and do things the right way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being here.